Hi, it's Neil here from Total Wellness Club. Sorry, we're having some problems again with Facebook Live. So just going to start again. Deleted the old video by accident. So we need to do this whole thing again from start for you, and we'll upload the video into Facebook. Sorry that we couldn't do it live again though. So it's Neil here from Total Wellness Club, where we help solve the problem of preventable ill health by helping wellness providers like you drive up your impact. And we do this by helping you build proof and credibility that helps you attract more clients by collecting reviews and then giving you awards. And we also bring you marketing insights, tips, and insider secrets too. So today, we're going to look at when and how to use webinars in your business. If you're joining me live or you're watching the replay, please do say hi. Tell us what's new for you and what's happening in your business right now. We do love to know what you're excited about. News from Total Wellness Club this week is that we've just launched a series on Facebook for wellness seekers. We have around 3,200 followers on Facebook, and we've just kicked off a mini-series where we're taking a look at preventing ill health. We started by picking a topic that affects most people, the common cold. So we're going to be looking at skin conditions next, and then we're going to be exploring one or two other topics after that. And the way I look at it is I'm not an expert on health and wellness, and I want to invite you, because you are, to come and join the conversation and share your wisdom. And then that way we're not limiting the public to one idea or one voice, but we're sharing and we're growing as a community, which is one of the brand values of Total Wellness Club. So the next episode on this will take place next Thursday at 4 o'clock. So it will be just after our usual Facebook Live, where I speak to you. And then we'll do that at 4 o'clock, and it will run for a few more weeks after that. If you can't join live, then no problem. Just come and have a look at the Facebook Live when you've got a few minutes, and then add in your comments and your expertise so that other people can learn from it. It just highlights who you are and that you're in that group, and maybe some of the expertise that you have on offer. If other people want to come and explore you, they can of course do that. So that's what's happening in our business. What about your business? What's the buzz for you? Please use the feed and tell us what you're celebrating, what's going on for you, because we'd like to celebrate that with you as well. So today we're talking about when and how to use webinars in your business. So let's jump straight in with the how. Webinars are now quite easy and quite straightforward to use. You wouldn't believe it though today, because you know what's happened with us with Facebook Lives, you know, dropping in and out signals and that kind of thing. But the technology is quite easy to use. There are things out there like Webinar Jam, GoToWebinar, Instant Teleseminar, to name just a few. We tend to use Zoom, we tend to use Google Hangouts and Facebook Lives as well. And I'll tell you why I use each of those, because there are different reasons behind them. So I've used webinars since around 2008. So we were quite early adopters of that kind of technology. And in the last decade, we've run around 200 events for our own business, and we have helped and supported our clients launch their products and services, but also supported them in terms of delivery using webinars, and we've done that probably 200 or more times as well. So we've done about 400 altogether in the last decade. And there have been events where we've seen six-figure sales coming in, over 100,000, and we've also had about 2,500 registrations for some of those events. And we've not just launched our own products or services, as I've said, we've also helped a number of clients do exactly the same. And the thing I want you to think about, because when people come to us and ask about running webinars, the first thing that really we want to ask people, and I want to ask you, is why? You know, why do you want to run a webinar? What's the purpose behind that for you? Mostly we use webinars to share information. So this could be for a coaching group, for example. It could be when you're launching a product or a service, or it could be just trying to build community in some way, as we're doing, you know, through Facebook Lives. So let me share a bit more of my reasoning behind why we use certain things for certain other things. Our Facebook Lives tend to be part of our attraction strategy. So for this, we're sharing information with our communities. So these can be like communities that maybe haven't yet committed to working with us yet, or people who have committed to working with us and who want to continue to connect with us, and who we want to continue to connect with in some kind of way. So Facebook Lives are right now for us really mostly about giving information and having engagement with potential customers and clients, and also existing customers and clients. I then tend to use Zoom mostly for meetings and for interviews and group training or group mentoring. They're a great way to run those programs, and they allow interaction as well. And sometimes we now use Zoom to connect in with Facebook Lives when we want to do things like screen sharing or having dual presenters. I then use Google Hangouts when I want to do a launch presentation. Like our recent UK nutritionist launch that we did. So what we do is we would take the live stream code and we would embed that into a page on our website so that people can watch that video, but where we've got other information that would support them and support the sale. So that's available then for all of the attendees. A lot of the time, webinars are used for launches or part of a launch. So this could be for a product or a service or a program or even a book that you want to launch. And if that's what you're doing, there are a few other things that I would encourage you to consider. There's a bit of a joke actually in our office in that whenever I put on a webinar, I seem to forget the number of steps involved. And Jo is the process girl. She's always telling me that there are about 92 steps to running a webinar. And I think that when it comes to me doing a webinar, that maybe someone's giving me gas and air or an epidural or something, and I'm having this huge endorphin rush because I seem to forget how many steps are involved, even though I've done them a couple of hundred times at least. So if you're going to do a webinar properly, you need to know that there can be quite a lot involved. And there are, as I say, 92 steps. And if you want to do it well, then you need to know it's not something that you could throw together overnight. And it might be something that you want some mentoring with, especially if you're going to launch something, because there's a lot to learn about things like marketing copy. And the presentation is also really important as well, because there are very specific things that you say at very specific times during the presentation. Okay, so let me share a story with you about when we put together our first sort of proper webinar. So in 2008, we were just kind of finishing dabbling with teleseminars and moving across into webinars. And by 2009, we'd learned quite a bit as we'd been dabbling. And then we decided that we were going to really go for it. And then in 43 days, we built and delivered our first ever proper webinar. And we had 1,000 attendees register for that event. So that was really cool. And we also made some really good sales as well. We also had our first nightmare of tech and what that can mean at that event as well. So that kind of taught us a heck of a lot, all in one go. Now, fortunately for us, we got a mentor involved who had done it all before. But we did this launch so well that that mentor was so impressed with what we did that they asked us if we would come and work for them. So it evolved from there that I became their partnership manager on a part-time basis, and then Jo became the business manager for that person as well. And that's really how Seven Figure Back Office, our original business, and then Total Wellness Club, that's where that all evolved from. Now, since then, we've seen lots of mistakes with webinars, and we've probably handled pretty much every scenario where the things that can go wrong do actually go wrong. And in fact, last month, just before we were launching our Nutritionist Awards, we had a tech issue about 20 minutes before we went live, which Jo managed to fix in that time because, as I say, she's got lots of experience of fixing things last minute and under pressure in that kind of way. So she was able to fix that, and I was able to turn up at the appointed time, and kind of nobody knew what was going on. And then in the last couple of weeks, we've had a few glitches with Facebook. got another one today. So we've just worked our way around that as quickly as we can to get the content up to you in as short a time as we possibly can as well. So what I'd say is, if you're not tech savvy, get some help from someone who knows what they're doing, especially when you do your first half a dozen sort of webinars, especially if they're around launches and things like that. You don't want to get them wrong. So do get the help in if you're not tech savvy. If you're doing Facebook Lives, I'd also suggest that maybe you set up a test page, especially if you're going to add in some extra software, as we do when we've got Zoom sometimes running in the background when we're doing things like screen sharing, as I mentioned earlier on, or dual presentations. If you're launching from webinar, as I say, I use Google when I'm doing sales presentations, Google Hangout. So if you're launching, there are other things that you'll need to go with that. So you would need an opt-in or registration page. So this is where you would write some really enticing copy on your registration page that gets people to opt into your webinar. So copywriting is a bit of an art. Now, I've trained with two of the best people in the world on copywriting, and my web pages tend to convert somewhere between 28% and 84%. That's the two extremes. While a lot of people's opt-ins are falling these days, my last couple of opt-in pages performed at 46%, and then 61%. So a little bit of a dip, and then something a bit better this time round. And if I was working in a campaign that maybe launched, say, on the Monday, and the page wasn't converting on Monday, I would be working on that page so that on Tuesday the conversion increased. So I'd be working on that during the campaign. 28% is like the bottom end of what I would expect and I've ever had. So I've never been below that. So from the registration page, people then need a thank you page. They need an automated email thanking them for the registration. And the best systems in terms of automation is something that Joe advises on. And the systems really depend on what your longer term goals are. So it really is worth having that consultation with Joe about that, rather than getting stuck with having the wrong system and then trying to change something that can be really painful. We've seen it happen because we've helped clients through that, and it really isn't a pleasant experience. So if you're selling something, you'll also need a sales page, and again, you need really good copy on that sales page. You'll need a thank you page as well. The copy on the thank you page and then the thank you email, which is auto responded, it's pretty much the same thing. And then if you're from the sales page, you would need a payment button, and you would also need the thank you email that goes once somebody has purchased from you. And if you're taking payments, you're going to need a payment gateway in place as well. That would be another thing that you would need. And the payment gateway, if you're thinking of doing webinars and selling from webinars, the payment gateway is the first thing that you should get resolved. So make sure that you can take online payments, because give you an example, we had somebody come to us once and they said, we're doing this webinar in 2 weeks. We want you to help put the tech together. We've got all the partnerships involved. They're all going to mail out on this date, and we need to just get everything set up. They didn't have their payment gateway set up, so we had like 2 weeks of quite a lot of stress with the banks trying to get the payment gateway put up and in place, because there was like 1,000 people all coming to this webinar in one go. Thankfully, we did that. They made over 10,000 in sales. Everyone was very happy at the end of the day. But it just shows you that you don't want to leave that till the last minute and be in the hands of the bank. Okay, so the other thing you need is you'll need emails. You need to write emails, very specific sequences of emails, because once someone has registered, you want to then actually get them to attend the webinar. And then you want to have the follow-up sales emails that go after that. I'll give you some stats on this as well. So these are stats we've collected over the last couple of years. Roughly about a third of the people who register for a webinar will actually watch it. We did slightly better last time round in that we had 57% who actually watched the launch video. So we are slightly ahead of those, but usually it's around a third on average. When I think of doing a webinar, often start by thinking how many registrations we might get. So you need to work this backwards. So typical open rates, and again, this comes from typically what we see in our clients' shopping carts and the open rates there. Typically, the open rates are the extremes of like 15% being the bottom end, and then an average of about 30 is more towards the high end. So these numbers are fairly typical. So if you've got, say, 1,000 people on your mailing list, that means that you'll probably have about 60 people who are actually reading those emails. Of those 60, about 50% will actually click a link on the email and then look at the registration page, and of that, about 50% might actually register with you. So from 1,000 people, you might actually get 15 registrations, and then only a third of those will show up. So literally from 1,000 people, you might have 5 people watching your launch. So that's not very exciting, but there are some things that you can do that will increase that response, and you could get those 15 up to about 70 from 1,000, and there are other things that we can do to bring in more people to that launch as well. But just wanted to give you that kind of stat. For about 1,000 people, about 70 is probably about as good as it could get for most people, unless you've got a very warm, very responsive list. You can also build, in terms of the types of webinars you could build, there's something called an always on or an evergreen webinar. So this is where the sales are allegedly more automated. Certainly the presentations there, the videos uploaded, and people can just go and register at any point they want to, and then they can pick a date and time where they can watch that video. We've done these in the past, but we tend not to really do them now. I do prefer to actually present and actually show up for the people that are registered, because I think there's something special about live energy and actually really being there and showing up. And I think when people get the impression that you're not showing up live and this is not a live event, then potentially people don't buy into you quite as much as they could, because it's not quite as authentic as it could be. So when we do webinars, we always look to list build as well. So typically a webinar would generate leads for us, usually about 150 to 200 new prospects from each time we do it. One thing, if you're going to do webinars and you're doing them to launch and sell something, then you really need to learn the art of selling from these webinars. Now, I've taught this technique, and I've also written scripts for clients in the past, and there's an art to this, and there are a lot of mistakes that you can make. So if you don't know what you're doing, do find out what you're doing, and don't assume that you know or that you're a good salesperson, even if you do get good conversions when you're talking one-to-one with people, because it's a different skill. I thought I was quite good at it more than a decade ago. I did get some results, but after I was trained in it, my conversion from those events just continued to increase. I spent about £15,000 learning how to get better at doing this. And I also learned, some very dodgy sales techniques. I don't use those. I'm always looking to make sure that we give value to people. That's first and foremost, and the most important thing that I think we can do in this profession. And I think there's a lot of integrity with that. But I also think that as someone who has something to offer, we don't want people to be suffering and be in pain. So we need to be able to offer something that's really good for those people. So the sales presentation has to bring those two elements together to make it really worthwhile for you and for the audience. Reviews actually come in really handy here, because you can use reviews in your presentations, because you can use them as case studies to demonstrate points that you're making in the presentation. But you also want to have them live streamed to your sales page as well. So as I say, you can use them in stories as you're presenting, but you can also have them on your sales page as a convincer. Now, when I say convincer, I don't mean trying to twist somebody's arm. What I mean is giving them all the information they need to be able to make an informed decision. And reviews do that, because as you're doing a sales presentation, let's say by webinar, you can take people to that page and you can talk them through that page, and you can say, you can hear in my reviews, so that you can see the kind of results other people are getting. and it just kind of reinforces the whole message and comes across as being much more genuine and transparent as well. So if you've not registered for our review service, you can do that by going to business.totalwellness.club. So that's business.totalwellness.club. I've done enough webinars to be able to share the reality of them with you, which I've done today. I don't mind telling you also what I would say to clients. Have a minimum of 1,000 people on your list before you even start. Ideally, you want 5,000 if you want to make some decent money from launching from webinars, unless you just want to experience doing them and you're not worried about the results. With 5,000 people, as I said, you could make some really good money from that if you're launching something and you get that launch right as well. And what I would say with that is, we've had people come to us who just wanted the tech because they thought that they had all the marketing things sorted. But actually, we saw straight through that once we saw their pages and we got some idea of their script. So we could immediately see that those events would fall down, and they generally did. So I would say, don't make the false economy of thinking you know that you've got the marketing nailed and you just need the tech help. As I say, there are some definite skills if you want to sell from webinars. If you're building a program, webinars are great as well. You know, if let's say you've sold a program from a webinar, but you haven't yet built it, you could build that program using webinars. So you could have like a live audience, you can be doing Q&A with them as part of that program, and you could be delivering you know, sound bites like I'm doing today to that group of people as well. So it's an excellent way of delivering a program as well. And then you've got it afterwards that you can then automate and deliver to the next group of people that come in once you've sold from the next webinar. So going forward, we're looking at co-creating and building and launching products with our members. So if you've got a products idea that you want to launch, let us know, and let's see if we can lend our support and knowledge to you in the building of that. If it's not something that works for us, we'll let you know. If it is something that works for you and works for us, then of course we could consider moving forward with that. I was also asked about podcasts as well as webinars. So let me just tell you a little bit about where they fit in. Like I said, with webinars, you can do a podcast, and you can do that just for fun. But if you actually want listeners, then really it comes down to timing. If I was guiding you, what I'd suggest is that do Facebook Lives to build traction. So that's like a slow lane kind of traction, getting people moving, getting people to engage with you, getting people to notice you, and then move people from Facebook into your mailing list, and then have your mailing list grow. And you don't need to stop doing this once you get over 1,000 or 5,000 people. You can just do this forever to stay in touch with people and keep building your list. So keep doing the Facebook Lives. That gets things moving in the slow lane. Then when you want to come across lanes, you can start to do launch webinars, and you can then launch your products and services from webinars en masse. And then when you've got 5,000, maybe start podcasting then, because rather than building a podcast and saying, if I build this podcast, people will come and listen to it, I think that's a hard way of doing things. If you've already got 5,000 people following you, then when you launch the podcast, you've already got people ready to listen to you. So that's what I wanted to say today about webinars, the how to do them, the when to do them, and some of the what in there as well. And next week, we're going to be looking at structuring Facebook Lives, just to give you a bit of an outline in terms of what you can do. And then in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to start to do some critiques on your profiles with Total Wellness Club. So if you would like me to critique your page, your profile with us live on a Facebook Live, so that you can go ahead and make that even better than it currently is, just let me know. Give me your URL, save me looking it up, and I will go and take a look at your profile and potentially be reviewing that in a future Facebook Live. Anyway, take care. Have a great weekend. Have a great end to your week, and then the weekend comes after that, of course. And we'll speak to you next week. See you soon.